Somebody,
Man, I'll tell you right now, so that tastes like 50-50 extended life, boys.
Marshall can probably.
hello, wrenches, and welcome back to another episode of the Wrench Turns podcast, 10 Mil Mastery Edition. It's a show where the lads and I get together to discuss topics that are relevant to today's technicians across the globe. In today's episode, we talk about safety in our shops. And I can't honestly believe that we need to talk about this very specific topic. It's somewhat heartbreaking and infuriating. Quick shout out to Wrenchway for continuing to provide some great either content or data points for us to be able to have conversations with. Thank you again, folks. Mark, Jay, we really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into it.
So who wants to go first? Who wants to wing a question right off the top first?
Go for it.
Dude, I'm pretty locked and cocked. If somebody else needs some time,
Go, Marshall.
dude. So I'm gonna stick with. So my normal wrench weight statistic is see where was it at? 59% of technicians say that they're required in their shop to wear safety glasses while working. So I felt like that was
fairly straightforward one.
Yeah, and I know that like it just says 59% of them say that they're required to wear safety glasses at their shop, and I'm gonna say that probably means like all the time, like when they're in the shop, they have to be wearing safety glasses.
So based on that means 41% do not work in a shop where there's any mandate for safety glasses. We can discuss this. This is a much broader topic because Stephan, I jump in, buddy. I know this is on you.
You know, health and safety is important, and I became a junior health and safety participant, I guess, on the board of the group at my place that runs the health and safety. So now it's my responsibility as a foreman and my responsibility as a JHC member. You got to wear your shades when you're working on anything that could potentially hazard your eyesight. Air hammer's a big one. You're pounding brakes with a hammer. Again, something flies out, takes out an eye, you're done. Working on tires, you pop a bead, you get pow right in the face with some tire lube or whatever. I mean, outside of the obvious jobs, welding, obviously the corrective lenses for welding, just for the flash. If you have the arc shields, also great. Wheel them in case someone's not paying attention. But I mean, generally speaking, if I'm doing an oil change or a set of tires, or my shades don't come out too often. I kind of have a set number of jobs where I'm gonna use them, and it's usually just the obvious ones. I've had an air hammer break off into my face. I had to run to the washroom and pick a piece of metal out of my skin. Like it's gonna happen. So can you imagine that happening to your eye? A grinder, I see guys grinding, again, hubs and whatnot. It's like, guys, anything spinning, anything moving, anything that can break apart. I mean, if you got no eyes, you're done. You can take a cut, you can take a broken fingernail. Everyone's broken a nail, and I don't mean like in a sissy kind of break nail. I mean like my nail is shattered. What do I do? Is my finger going to be there by the end of the day? I don't know. Injuries in the shop are going to happen if you're new, you're not paying attention, and if you're not listening. A lot of it does come down to, hey man, you might want to throw your shades on. I've seen one of those things shatter in the past. So I think everybody should have safety glasses mandatory. To be wearing them all the time, though, I mean, I get particularly hot when I have glasses on. I don't know why, but so I'll start to bead sweat pretty quickly if I'm just on the computer doing my ROs or whatnot. I don't really see the need for a pair of shades. So, I think every job has its mandate for when they're required, but you got to have them, period. If the ministry comes through and does a check, everyone has to have a pair of glasses. So I think it's
interesting to think about how often I've been in a shop where the ministry's been through talking about safety. And I mean safeties in Canada, we have safeties where we are certified to be able to perform safeties on vehicles, meaning we're certifying for at least 36 days that they are safe to drive, and we have to have required safety equipment like dial indicators and so on and so forth of that nature. But when it comes to safety, how often OSHA has been through the shop that I've been at, and I think every shop I've ever worked at, OSHA has been through at a random point saying, do you have appropriate shields on presses? Do you have appropriate, safety glasses and boots and steel toe boots and what do you do with your hazardous containers and so on? Like, this is a much broader topic than just safety glasses. You brought up steel or steel grinding going into your eye. I still have steel in my arm. I have a piece of steel so I bought a brand new Snap-on impact hammer, a brand new set of tooling for it. I don't know how much it was. It was a stupid amount of money. And the impact chisel, the first time I used it, I don't actually remember what I was trying to do or remove. I just remember everything was locked down on vise on my bench. I had safety glasses on. I was in full gear, including I usually roll up my sleeves. I didn't have my sleeve. They were down, and I broke the impact chisel. Like, it shattered.
Yep.
Went all over the shop. And it made a loud bing noise on the locker that was in front of me. My locker was part of my built-in. And then my arm started to hurt, and I couldn't figure out why. And of course, I've got my sleeves rolled down and didn't think anything else. My arm hurts, like not welding or anything where it's stuff on fire, but my arm hurts, but I didn't think anything of it. About 20 minutes goes by, I start to get lightheaded. I get nauseous. My head starts to hurt. My arm starts to hurt. I stop being able to feel, these three fingers start to go numb. I vomit in the garbage can that's in the shop. It's like, I don't know what's wrong. And so my arm started to swell up. Really swell up. And it was probably about yay big old welt on this part of my arm right about here. And of course, at that point, my shop foreman already knew what had happened, that I had vomited. And it's like, I think maybe, because there was just a tiny little mark on my arm. Big old swelling, because obviously it swelled everything shut, but a tiny little mark on my arm. So I drove myself to the hospital, which thankfully at the time was just down the street, which was stupid. But I hadn't filled out a form or anything yet at work. I left work, I drove to the hospital, and they did an x-ray on my arm, and lo and behold, I've got like a 3mm or 4mm piece of steel in my arm. And it's sitting right on top, I think it's called the ulnar nerve. So the ulnar nerve runs here.
Yeah, it's your funny bone.
And it comes up into here. So anytime even now, this is like almost 15 years on, maybe more. Anytime my arm gets bumped here, this part of my hand goes completely numb. Just numb, like pins and needles. So if that can happen with that small piece of steel, and we're talking, it's still in there, 15 years on, still sitting in there. Imagine what can happen to your eyes, or your feet, or the rest of you when you're not wearing safety gear. Right? So if there are shops that are saying that you don't have to wear, or aren't mandating that you don't have to wear safety glasses, that's scary for me. And for you folks out there working at those shops where they're not mandating safety gear, I'm not entirely sure what to say to that, to be completely honest. You got to be careful yourself. Richard, what do you think?
There, no, I'm unmuted. So we supply safety glasses. You don't have to wear them all the time, but obviously common sense prevails when you got to wear them, like Stephan said, when you're mounting a tire or grinding with a wheel or anything like that. Steel toe boots or safety shoes. You can wear composites if you want. They got to be, soles got to be oil resistant, and then gloves. Obviously, there's a lot of pushback when it comes to gloves. I've been finding. I don't know how it is in the HD world, but I know in the automotive world, you'll get your old timers who they feel stuff through the gloves is what they tell you. But then, you know, you watch them retire and they end up getting like wicked cancer, and it's all from all the chemicals they've been absorbing through the years through the gloves. Like the fluids have gotten harsher from back in the day, right? Like grease isn't the same as it was 20 years ago. Transmission fluid isn't the same as it was 20 years ago. Differential fluid isn't the same as it was 20 years ago. Like the fluids that we're working with now are extremely toxic, and if you're working with your hands in these fluids all day, like your body's just absorbing all these chemicals, and a lot of guys don't understand that. But when it comes to like, yeah, safety glasses, I even had to step in and tell a couple of my journeymen, like, stop using a die grinder with a cutoff wheel on it with no guard. One guy's like, oh, no, it's fine. It's never happened before. And then he was cutting away and the wheel exploded and it caught him. Thank God he's like, oh, I was wearing my safety glasses, but it went through his work shirt and cut his belly. Like not to the point where he had to go get stitches, but he went in and they had to just butterfly tape it closed. But it was like, yeah, common sense is a major factor there. But yeah, like shop safety is a whole different. We could do a whole episode on shop safety alone, right? Like proper guards on presses, proper training, signed off training. You know, like I've worked in years ago. I worked in a place where you had to wear safety glasses as soon as you stepped on the production floor, and they didn't come off until you walked off the production floor and took them and went to the break room. And but they had a whole safety committee, and it was like every machine you touched, you had to get trained on, and you had to get signed off on it. And you know, I don't think we're at that point, but at least in my shop, we're not at that point. But there are some things like, you know, the walkaway tire mounter. You need to be trained up on that because you can easily, things can go wrong really fast on that machine. Road force balancer, not too much. I mean, if a wheel's loose, it's going to wreck the machine before anything happens. Brake lathe, yeah, that comes down to common sense as well. Like, don't touch the thing when it's spinning a rotor. But and
Yeah, you say that, I'm thinking back. Okay, tire machines. Yeah, if you're dumb in any way, shape, or form, you might get hurt. You can get hurt, but not amazingly hurt. When you're doing tire dismount, perhaps rubber off of rim, if you've got fingers in places, it's going to cut them off. Brake lathe, same deal. If you're not careful, it'll wrap you in. I've seen the demonstration done where somebody had literally put obviously a scarf in there on purpose to see what happens without a knife blade in there. But you get a scarf, you get anything loose that gets caught in there, it will wrap that scarf faster than you can shake a stick, and it will cut things off by sheer pressure of rotation. It will rip things off, it will break things, it will snap things faster than you can shake a stick. So, Marshall, you brought up the statistic. What do you have to say about it?
Well, I mean, big safety guy. So Richard brought up he wasn't quite sure about gloves with HD, but a lot of the HD shops have made it standard that all technicians wear cut resistant gloves. So we take that glove to a step further where a lot of us are wearing cut resistant gloves pretty exclusively. I wear them as much as I possibly can. Sometimes you do have to take one off and get a bolt started or something, but I would say probably 85% of the time that I'm working, I'm wearing cut resistant gloves. And then, you know, and it's good we brought up the topic because I know that I have gotten a little bit slack on my safety glass wearing, but I used to be a lot better, but I know I need to tighten it up. But we are required to wear our safety glasses, like Richard said, as soon as we walk in the shop. Like, we have to have them on until we leave the shop area, the work area. We're supposed to be wearing those. And I did bring up some more added info. The number one injuries are strains, sprains, and tears. So I know, like with my apprentices, I always encourage stretching prior to we get going in the morning. And then the second, number two, eye injuries. So number two is eye injuries, and they say about every day, about 2,000 U.S. workers sustain an eye-related injury.
I believe that. I wholeheartedly
So
believe that.
yeah, I would guess that that's pretty accurate. And then number three was chemical burns, which oddly enough, I can't recollect seeing anybody in maybe once, maybe twice in my career getting a chemical burn.
You have to remember that
But
some
number
people
four is,
respond differently to chemical burns, right? Like
yeah,
my skin is for lack of it, my skin's a pussy. I get stuff on my skin other than the basic stuff, and I go into full red. Like my skin goes beet red. Like I get too much of something on, and it goes beet red. I get a rash, and some folks immediately go to that's a chemical burn or register it as a chemical burn on the WSIB form or whatever the workman's comp form that they have to fill out, and it's the closest thing to rash that it might be. So it might be a slightly inflated number because of inappropriately communicated. Because I've seen lots of rashes occur, but not necessarily burns. I would suggest that burn, you get bubbled skin, you get skin falling off, kind of like it was too much heat, but at the same time it was chemical. We're talking like dumping battery acid on your skin. Usually that stuff happens because somebody inappropriately put together the battery juice inside the box or the container that it's supposed to hold, or didn't put it in the right container, or put it in a different container and they weren't supposed to, or usually it was negligence. I've never seen rashes or burns or anything else like that kind of thing happen without negligence. Have you seen anything like that, Stephan?
Sorry. We actually had one tech that he couldn't work with coolant, any kind of coolant. Once the coolant touched his skin, he would literally break out into a pretty heavy duty rash. And I was kind of surprised because the coolant's not. I mean, it's got its MSDS form. It's obviously has reactive properties in it, but I mean, I've had it sit on my hands for minutes at a time. Sometimes it dries. You're just too deep into a job. It gets into your glove. Now you got a puddle glove going, and it's like, no big deal. You can feel sort of like the slickness on your hands. Obviously, you have to wash them afterwards, but never a reaction. I mean, I've gotten it into my mouth before, not on purpose, but stuff happens, and you
There
wash
might be
it
some
out.
people out
Usually
there
good
that
to
might have
go.
tried to get it in there on purpose.
Well, some guys will taste, right? Some guys, that's how they do a fluid leak. What kind of fluid is that? Let me taste it. I'm going, yeah, guys, you don't need to taste it. Just put it on your finger, put it on a white piece of paper. You can pretty much, I mean, on our cars, it's just coolant or a transmission or engine oil. There's no
dude,
steering fluid now.
I'm bad
on
about
cars,
that.
so it is what it is.
I ain't gonna
It
lie
is.
to you.
When
I
you can
said-
tell the difference
I said,
between
"Ooh."
Exxon or Mobil One fuel, you might be doing it on purpose, or you could be a klutz like me. I've had more of that stuff on me, around me, taste in my mouth because I'm stupidly mouth breathing instead of nose breathing. You find yourself deep into a
Shit.
job and you're sweating bug hits. You got swass like crazy and you get your mouth open, breathing hard in a job, and then all of a sudden something sprays it's not supposed to spray, and you are now ingesting something you really fucking shouldn't ingest. I can,
Oh,
Man,
case
that's
in
definitely,
point, R134A does not taste good. R134A will give you migraines. R134A will, in fact, give you when they say halo vision. If you ever want to experience it, I don't suggest anyone ever do it. But if you want to know exactly what it is, R134A in the eyes for about 2 days straight will give you halo vision. It puts halos around everything. It's horrible. Absolutely
vaporized peg oil.
horrible.
That stuff sucks.
Somebody
Man, I'll
Marshall-
tell you right now, so that tastes like 50-50 extended life, boys.
Marshall can probably attest to this, but diesel fuel in the armpit. That stings.
Oh, dude, yeah, it runs down your arm and you're doing something overhead, and then it leaks all the way down and it's all up on your side. Oh, that's the best.
forklifts. When the
It's
only
all
way you can get to
oily and-
something, you can't lift it. Oh my god! And you're doing one of these, trying.
I'll give you one better. I was an apprentice doing a diesel oil change, and as I'm pulling the strainer out of the drainer, it comes right out. So now I got 9 liters in the bucket, and it just points right at my waistline. Okay, so
Oh
I'll
my
give you an idea. Both legs soaked with diesel oil.
Oh,
Try
the
and
absorption,
understand now.
nether region absorbent. Oh my
And
goodness.
now I'm in the shower, upstairs. Luckily we had one, and it's like, now I got to take a whole on shower. The bottom of my waist is like, it's just covered in oil. And it's like, I got to go home and change, guys. Like, I need a fresh pair of undergarments here. Like, I'm kind of
my
in a bad
goodness.
spot. And they're like, can you just finish the oil change first? I'm like, okay, sure.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, as an apprentice, man, come on.
But commenting on what Marshall said is the number one thing, that's sprains, strains, and pulls. Like, it's. I can attest to this. I have apprentices who have come in, and when I worked at Nissan, I had 2 apprentices, and there were several times they'd call, "Hey Richard, could you come break this bolt for me?" And like a brake caliper bolt. And I'm like, "How long you been working for?" They're like, "I've been doing like 50 minutes." I'm like, "Well, give it another pull." And they're like yarding on it, and then they can't break. And I walk over, grab the vehicle, grab the bar, and I'm like, "Squeak!" And they're like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "You gotta go home and eat your Wheaties, kid. Like, hit the gym."
You got that old man strength, Richard. Got that old man strength, buddy.
Well, I'm still the stubborn one at my shop I lift front diffs up and drop them into place on my own. So pull transfer cases, drop them onto my shoulder, walk over to my bench, thump them on the ground. Yeah, that's
Classic.
May or may
That's-
not be the greatest role model for how to lift and put in place.
no, but I'm also like next to my baymate, I'm probably one of the larger guys in the shop, right? My baymates.
He lifted with his legs. I saw it.
Right.
They've
You're
watched
what?
me. Mike.
You're 6'1", 220, right? Give or take.
I'm 5'11", 225 right now.
Oh, so I got
So,
a ways to
well,
go.
yeah,
You and I are the
like-
same height. I'm 205. Got to put some more weight on.
I grab I'll reach down and pick like the Atlas stone lifts, and goes back to like powerlifting stuff. And I was trying to do strongman one year, and like I'll reach down and grab a transfer case, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And then I like roll it back like an Atlas stone onto my lap, and then up the belly onto my shoulder, and then I stand up, and they're like, "That's like a 75-pound transfer case," and I'm like, "Yeah, get out of my way." And then over to the vehicle and thump.
Clear the
Yeah.
ramp.
75 pounds ain't much. Like when you start going to triple digits, then it gets really difficult because yes, you can dead it to your lap properly. You can get it on your shoulder properly. All be lifting with the right muscles. But once you get it over your head, and the only thing that's supporting it truly is arm and shoulder strength, then it's
Yeah.
the getting the really fussy bits. Like transfer case, for anybody that's never put a transfer case in place, like especially if you've never worked on a Dodge and stuff I've done most, when you've got like 8 studs out of the transfer case to go in 8 holes on the transmission, and it's got to go in at just the right angle at that point, because when you got 8, 10, or 12 points of contact that it's got to slip through, getting it just right at the just right angle so that you can actually get a stud through the hole all the way and get a nut on the other side so it won't fall on your fucking head is a challenge. It takes every ounce of mental energy. Forget about physical strength. Mental energy to go, okay, this is going to go in a little bit longer. I'll get it a little bit longer. I'll get it a little bit, maybe turn it, maybe turn it, maybe turn it, maybe turn it. Thunk! And it's like, okay, fuck, get the nut on, get the nut on, get the nut on. So, yeah, if you can't lift a 50 to 75 pound transfer case, you need to get to the gym. You need to be eating properly.
It's one thing to lift though, like 50, 75 pounds. It's one thing to do that, but like how awkwardly shaped like a transfer case is or a front differential is, or it's one thing to, it's pretty easy to get them going, but to maintain control of them when they're up here, you're like, yeah, everybody knows the T case isn't shaped the greatest. A front axle out of an HD isn't shaped the greatest, and I think the heaviest transfer case I've ever lifted was an NP205, big old cast iron transfer case. That thing weighed like 130 pounds, 140 pounds.
Oh my goodness. Well, we started this conversation. Marshall brought up 59% of technicians only 59% of technicians are mandated to wear safety glasses in their shop. And anybody listening out there, I'd love to hear your comments. Send comments through, Spotify has a place where you can send comments. YouTube has a place where you can send comments through. Send me a DM. Love to hear comments about what the safety's like in your shop. Marshall, that was an awesome question. Really appreciate it. Stephan.
Oh no, wrenches! That's the end of another episode. That's okay, because we got another banging one coming next week. Folks, we really appreciate you. Appreciate you watching, appreciate you listening, sharing the show, and most importantly, hope you enjoy and subscribe. A few updates before we roll to the end of the video this week. Wrench Turners Online now has hoodies in additions to the t-shirts that are there and able for your consumption in our Flat Rate Sucks Change My Mind campaign. Check out the links below to make sure that there's a size and color of your desire. Also, our Wrenches for Wrenches newsletter, the bi-weekly free newsletter, has almost 2,000 subscribers. If you don't subscribe, Vinny is going to get upset and chew my ear off. I swear, every time I turn around, I see that angry mug looking at my face, trying to chew it off because you guys aren't subscribed. It's up to you to subscribe. We hope you enjoy and subscribe. And subscribe. Hey folks. Lastly, and as always remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you throw them away.